Short. Strong. Espresso English.
Fuel your day. Let's learn.
You texted first, you planned the hangout, you followed up, and then one day, you just stopped, and nothing happened.
Silence. Complete silence. And that's when it hits you. Was this ever a two-way street?
This is Espresso English, and today we're diving into one of the most quietly painful social dilemmas out there. Do you make the first move, or do you wait to be invited?
This is a B1 level episode, perfect for intermediate learners. But honestly, beginners, you're welcome to. This topic needs no translation.
Because here's the thing. Almost everyone has been on both sides of this. You've been the one who always reaches out, and maybe you've also been the one who never does not because you don't care, but because you're terrified of being too much.
Or not enough. That fear of, what if they don't want to hear from me? It's more common than people admit.
Quick question, before we go any further. Which one are you? Type A, you're the one who always texts first. Or type B, you wait and hope. Drop it in the comments, A or B. You've got 3 seconds.
I already know what most people are going to say, but the answer might surprise you, because neither one is automatically better. And that's exactly what we're unpacking today.
We're going to talk about why some people always take the initiative, why others hold back, and what actually happens to a friendship when the effort stops being equal.
And there's one thing we discovered that completely reframes how you think about staying connected. We'll get to that.
Stay until the end for our word tour 5 expressions that'll help you talk about relationships, connection, and all that messy in-between stuff in natural, fluent English.
And right now, we're guessing you're on your commute, or maybe lying in bed avoiding something important.
Either way, you're in the right place. Because later, we'll give you 2 small, zero-pressure tools to help you figure out which friendships are worth fighting for and how to fight for them without burning out.
But first, let's talk about why this even becomes a problem in the first place. Okay, so let's set the scene. You meet someone at work, at a class, through a mutual friend. The first few conversations are great. You laugh, you have things in common, you think, yeah, this could be a real friendship.
And then the pattern starts. You reach out, they respond, you reach out again, they respond again. It feels mutual. But is it?
Here's the test. Stop reaching out. Just for a week. See what happens.
And for a lot of people, nothing happens. A week becomes 2 weeks. 2 weeks becomes a month. And suddenly you realize, this whole time, you are the one keeping it alive.
That's the moment it starts to feel one-sided. And that word one-sided is important, because it doesn't always mean the other person dislikes you. Sometimes they're just passive. They enjoy the connection when it's there, but they won't take the initiative to create it.
Which is its own kind of painful, honestly. Because you can't even be angry. They were never rude. They always replied. They just never started.
And on the flip side, some people never reach out because they're scared. Not cold, not indifferent. Just scared. What if I'm bothering them? What if they're busy? What if they've already moved on and I'm the only one who hasn't?
That anxiety is so real. I've been there. You draft a message, stare at it for 5 minutes, then delete it. Because somehow, sending a simple, "Hey, how are you?" feels like a huge risk.
A risk. For a text message. But that's genuinely how it feels when you're not sure where you stand with someone.
And here's where it gets complicated. The people who always take the initiative, they're often the ones who care the most. But caring the most doesn't protect you from burning out. At some point, always being the one to reach out starts to feel exhausting. You start wondering, do they even think about me when I'm not in front of them?
That question is brutal, and it leads people to do one of 2 things. Either they keep going, keep sending the first message, keep making the plans because the connection feels worth it, or they quietly pull back. Not dramatically, just they stop initiating, and they wait.
And what they're really doing is running a test, an unofficial, unspoken test. If I stop reaching out, will you?
Most of the time, the answer reveals everything, and it's not always what you hope for.
This is how friendships drift apart, by the way. Not with a fight, not with a dramatic falling out, just with a slow, quiet fade. One person stops initiating, the other never starts, and eventually the gap becomes too wide to cross.
And the worst part, both people might actually miss each other, but neither one reaches out, because by that point, it feels awkward. Too much time has passed. You don't know how to restart something that ended so quietly.
Which is why keeping in touch, actually keeping in touch, not just liking someone's post, matters more than most people realize. A like is not a conversation. A reaction emoji is not connection.
Real connection requires someone to go first, every single time. And that's the uncomfortable truth at the center of all of this.
There's actually a principle in psychology that explains why this dynamic plays out the way it does. It's called the Reciprocity Principle, the idea that people are wired to respond to those who give first. But here's the catch. The person who always gives first is also the most likely to feel the imbalance.
So the very thing that keeps a relationship going can also be the thing that slowly wears one person down. And by the way, there's a phrase for that slow fade we were just describing. It's called drift apart. We'll break it down properly in our word tour later. Okay, so here's where I want to push back a little, because I think we've been framing the always initiating person as the victim here, but what if they're also part of the problem?
Wait, how is the person putting in all the effort part of the problem?
Because if you keep reaching out, keep making it easy, keep filling the silence, you're actually removing the other person's chance to step up. You're doing all the work and then resenting them for not doing any. But they never had to, because you were always there first.
I see your point. But I have to disagree. That logic puts the responsibility on the wrong person. If someone genuinely cares about a friendship, they don't need to be forced into initiating by the other person going silent. That's not how healthy relationships work.
But that's exactly how people figure out who actually values the connection. If you disappear and they don't notice, that tells you something real. You can't manufacture mutual effort by just hoping it appears.
You're missing the point. The issue isn't whether the test works, it's that we're treating friendship like a transaction. I'll only keep investing if you prove you're investing equally. That's not warmth. That's accounting.
Okay, fair. But you can't ignore the data either. If someone never takes the initiative, not once in 6 months, that's not shyness, that's a pattern.
And I'm not saying ignore it. I'm saying the solution isn't to go cold and wait, because then you've got two people who care, both waiting, both too proud or too scared to go first, and the friendship just dies for no reason.
That's a real scenario. I'll give you that. But here's my actual concern about the people who keep reaching out even when every signal says the other person isn't that invested. At what point does being the bigger person become self-abandonment?
That's the real question, isn't it? And honestly, that's where the 3-message test comes in. Not as a punishment, not as a withdrawal, but as information. You reach out 3 times over a reasonable period. Not 3 times in 1 week, 3 times over a few weeks, and you pay attention. Does the other person ever initiate anything? A reply isn't enough. Do they ever start something?
Okay, so you're not saying stop reaching out. You're saying reach out intentionally and observe the pattern.
Exactly, because there's a difference between someone who's going through a hard time and temporarily quiet and someone who's simply never going to take the initiative. One deserves patience, the other deserves honesty with yourself.
But I still think you're being too generous. Some people are just takers. They'll keep in touch as long as you do the work. The moment you stop, they move on without a second thought. And the sooner you accept that, the less time you waste.
I don't buy that as a universal rule. People have different social styles. Some people are genuinely terrible at reaching out, not because they don't care, but because they're anxious or overwhelmed, or they grew up in families where you didn't check in on people. That doesn't make them takers. It makes them people who need a different kind of patience.
Okay, But at what point does different social style become an excuse? Because from the outside, I'm anxious about texting first and I just don't care enough, look identical.
They do look identical from the outside, which is why the second tool matters, lowering the bar for what reaching out even means. Instead of feeling like you have to craft a whole conversation, you just forward them an article they'd like, a meme, a song, something that says, "I thought of you," without requiring a full emotional investment from either side.
So you're reducing the friction, making it easier to initiate without it feeling like a big deal.
Right, because a lot of people don't drift apart because they stopped caring. They drift apart because initiating started to feel too heavy, too formal, like you need a reason to reach out, and you don't. "I saw this and thought of you" is a complete reason.
That's actually a reframe I hadn't considered. It's not about who texts first. It's about making the act of connecting feel light enough that both people are willing to do it.
And when both people feel that, the one-sided dynamic starts to shift. Not always, but often enough to be worth trying before you write someone off entirely.
All right, I'll concede that point. Reluctantly.
Noted. Reluctant concession on record. Okay, so we've talked about the pattern, the pain, and the two tools. Now it's time for the part of the show I genuinely look forward to every episode.
Word tour time. And today's 5 expressions are ones we've actually been using this whole conversation. You might have caught a few already.
Let's slow it down and break them apart one by one.
These are the exact words you need to talk about connection, distance, and everything in between.
Okay, let's talk about the actual words we've been using today. Because some of these phrases sound simple, but there's a lot going on underneath them.
And honestly, these are the kinds of expressions that come up constantly in real conversations about relationships. You need them.
Let's start with reach out. We use this one early on. You reach out, they respond. But reach out is interesting because it's not just about texting a friend. It carries this sense of effort, of crossing a distance.
Right. You can say, "I reached out to an old colleague about a job opportunity," or "She reached out to me after years of not talking." It implies someone made a move, someone closed the gap.
And the gap doesn't have to be emotional. You can reach out to a company, to a stranger, to a mentor. It's versatile. But in the context of today's episode, it's about being the one who goes first.
Which connects perfectly to take the initiative. This one's a bit more formal, but it shows up everywhere. At work, in friendships, in relationships, she always takes the initiative in group projects. He took the initiative to apologize first.
It's about not waiting for permission, not waiting for the perfect moment, just moving. And the reason we talked about it today is because taking the initiative in a friendship is genuinely harder than it sounds. There's vulnerability in it.
Especially when you're not sure if the other person wants you to, which is exactly where one-sided comes in.
Oh, this one hits differently. One-sided means only one person is putting in the work. This friendship feels one-sided. The effort in this relationship is completely one-sided. It's not a neutral word, it carries weight. It implies imbalance and usually some quiet frustration.
And what happens when one-sided effort goes on too long? People drift apart. That's our next phrase. And I love this one because it's so visual. Drift. Like two boats that were once tied together and then someone cut the rope and now they're just slowly floating in different directions.
And neither boat is necessarily moving fast. That's the thing about drifting apart, it's gradual. You don't notice it happening until one day you realize you haven't spoken in 3 months. We used to be so close, but we've drifted apart. After college, a lot of my friendships just drifted apart naturally.
It's not dramatic, it's not a fight. It's just distance accumulating quietly over time.
Which is why the last phrase matters so much. Keep in touch. Such a common expression, but people underestimate it. Keeping in touch isn't just about replying when someone messages you. It's about maintaining the thread. Actively. Intentionally.
Let's keep in touch after the conference. I try to keep in touch with my university friends even though we live in different cities. It's a commitment, even a small one. It says, I'm not going to let this fade.
And when you put all 5 of these together, reach out, take the initiative, one-sided, drift apart, keep in touch, you get the full picture of what we were talking about today. The whole cycle, the effort, the imbalance, the slow fade, and the choice to fight against it.
These aren't just vocabulary, words. They're the language of how relationships actually work, or don't work.
And now you have the words to talk about it, in English, clearly and naturally. So here's where we landed today. The question isn't really, should I text first? It's, do I even know what kind of friendship this is?
And the honest answer is, most people don't. They just keep reaching out, or they keep waiting without ever stopping to actually look at the pattern.
So here's something concrete you can try this week. Pick one friendship that's felt a little quiet lately. Don't overthink it. Just send something small, an article, a meme, a voice note, something that says, I thought of you. That's it. No agenda.
And then pay attention. Not in a scorekeeping way, but just notice. Does this person ever initiate? Do they take the initiative sometimes, or is it always you? That awareness alone changes how you show up in a relationship.
And if you're on the other side, if you're the one who never reaches out because you're scared of being too much, try lowering the bar. You don't have to write a paragraph. You don't have to have something important to say. Just reach out. A short message is enough to remind someone they're not drifting away from you.
Because the truth is, most people aren't waiting for the perfect message. They're just waiting to hear from you.
And if none of this applies to you because you have perfectly balanced, mutually initiated friendships across the board, honestly, teach us your ways.
Seriously, we want to know.
Before you go, we want to hear from you. Tell us in the comments, are you a type A or a type B? And has that ever caused a friendship to drift apart?
We read every single comment. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Take care of yourselves and maybe take the initiative today.